Well, it's been a while since I've done any of this, and I just thought I'd give it another whirl with both my watchers. I'm going back to what this map is that we got from Dominion Electric, along with the letter that says we want you to come to a public hearing and we're going to talk about what we're doing. In the meantime, as you probably saw in the newspaper, it's going to show us where they're going to put the big towers that are going to be our big metal trees that will be up and down 288 and perhaps our neighborhoods. Kind of difficult to tell where they're going to be. I guess that's what they're going to show us. They also show where it's a coordinated effort with the Eli Lilly plant. So what a great coincidence that the Board of Supervisors, Dominion Energy, and the owners were all able to come up with this plan from November 6th until whatever last week was. So say 3 weeks. That's pretty quick work for a group of folks that normally takes a long time, at least the government folks. So I'm a little suspicious that perhaps, just perhaps, that there was some backroom discussions on what should happen and when it should happen. I'm very interested in the Board of Supervisors, their level of integrity, the way they do business, and so I've started to tuning in to see what they do and how they do it. I was tuned into a board meeting a few weeks ago where they were discussing a proposed subdivision on Maidens Lane, the narrow part of Maidens Lane where you get two pickup trucks coming at each other, and there's literally, if they're big, there's not enough room on the road for both of them to pass without doing some mirror knocking. So folks have learned that they just have to hang one side of the truck over the ledge and be in the ditch, sort of. And there was a landowner out there with over 100 acres, and the landowner wanted to create a cool subdivision. The average lot, or the average space for a lot, would be about 4 acres. Actually, each lot was going to be 2, but there's a requirement for that type of subdivision to have 50% of the land in open, so rural feeling. So if they've got 50 acres in houses, and there's going to be about 25 houses, then they would need to have another 50 acres open to maintain the rural nature. And so they had the landowner had a reasonable plan, and he had engineers that vetted it, and he showed it how it could work. And he's local. He actually lives there, unlike our West Creek landowners who live in big giant houses away from West Creek. So anyway, there was a presentation on what the development was going to look like, and it sounded actually kind of cool. But then the neighbors got up to speak, and there were 2 things. Thing one, they sort of belittled the effort of the Section 4 and 5 residents who had testified against high-field data centers, nuclear reactors. They said, "Oh, we're not going to attack you," so they were belittling us. Of course, if they were losing land value, property value, there would be a horse of a different color, as they said in the land of Oz. That was the first thing. And they also mocked us about a nuclear reactor. They said, one of the guys said, "Oh, there'll be a nuclear reactor 50 miles away, just so you know." I sort of felt badly about that they wanted to make fun of us like that. But what they did is there were several of the neighbors who lived on there, on Maidens Lane or close to Maidens Lane, and they went over the traffic and how bad it was going to be. Not just from the construction, that it was going to take a year or 2 to build out these 20-some houses, but also the fact that it was going to add X number of cars per day on this very narrow road, and there's no budget in the state or county budget to fix that. And of course, everybody knows that Maiden's Road is one of the more dangerous roads in Goochland County, especially where it intersects with Broad. There's accidents there all the time. So the neighbors pitched against the subdivision based on that. They also pitched against the subdivision because they're all on wells and septic. And in the summertime, occasionally the wells dry out. And so they're saying, well, if we add 24, 25 more wells into the area, that's going to increase the chances of our wells drying out. And many of them had livestock out there, and so they were concerned. There were no expert witnesses or testimonies or comments at all. These were all comments by the neighbors. Most of them, not all, were within the time limits. This is District 3, Tom Winfrey's district. And so at the end of the comments, the Board of Supervisors discussed it, and there's actually very little discussion. One of them said, we hate to have water at issue because of the livestock, so we don't really like that. Another said, well, normally I would vote for it if it's in the comprehensive plan, but perhaps this is unsafe, so I shouldn't do it. And Jonathan Lau said, I voted against the Highfield because of the unsafe traffic conditions, so I would, of course, vote against this. And they didn't vote against it. What they agreed to do is voted to defer it based on some traffic upgrades at Maidens and Broad. But there were no expert testimony. It was just the Board of Supervisors saying, oh, yeah, we agree with you, but because of you're emotional, maybe it's fact-based, maybe it's not, we don't have any expert testimony, but we'll buy into it. Unlike Highfield, which was in District 4, Highfield had expert testimony, had a planning commission, and had citizens all voice their negativeness about it. So what's the difference between the 100-acre in District 3, and I don't know how big Highfield is. Everybody voted against it except for the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors did 3 against 2. 4 and 5 voted against it because of the safety issues of the roads and no fire response, quick fire response because the roads are so bad. But the Board of Supervisors did it. Why? Why do you suppose that is? I can only stipulate. They knew they didn't need new tax base because they were getting Lilly and they were getting the data centers. But that development, Highfield, is being developed by Eagle, and Eagle is Markel. Markel is West Creek. So all these coincidences, that's perhaps, maybe it's not, maybe it is, that's perhaps why Highfield was approved with all the expert testimony and comments. And the one in District 3, where the citizens just made emotional comments about what they felt about the traffic. There was no studies, there was no hydrology reports. They just said what they felt, and the Board of Supervisors said, yep, that's great. We agree with what you feel. So this is very consistent with the way they want to treat us. I think it surfaces some issues, though. And one of the issues, and I'll come back to this in a later broadcast, one of the issues is water. The water in most of Goochland County comes from wells. And I don't know how deep those wells are. I had a well in Texas that was very deep. And because it was so deep, it was expensive and yada, yada, yada. One of the answers that the developer had in the discussion of District 3 was, well, we'll just dig deeper wells. I don't know if that would work or not. Again, I think you'd have to have a hydrology report. One thing that bothers me a little bit though is the data centers here are required to use water provided by Goochland. And Goochland, of course, as you know, buys it from Henrico and Richmond. So it's not really an accessible thing to us, and we have a limit. And it's incredibly expensive, incredibly expensive. I don't know how it compares to the rest of them, but it's very expensive. So we're requiring, the county is requiring the data centers to use the water from Goochland, but it doesn't say how to use the water from Goochland. So all you landowners out there who are thinking, my well water is safe, think again, think again. Because as long as they use it, the data centers use it, for instance, they'll use it in their bathrooms, they'll use it in their coffee rooms and their snack bars and all that stuff, to water their lawns. Well, probably not to water their lawns, but for cooling, they can dig wells. Nothing prevents them from digging wells. So there goes your aquifer. The next time, I think I'm going to take a look at where the data centers are coming in our local area, because they're coming down everywhere. I remember when we first started talking about this, we said they're like locusts. Once they get in, they're everywhere. Well, they're coming. And now we've got them in Hanover County, Louisa County, Powhatan County. They're going to be surrounded. So you all that live out in districts 1 and 2 and even 3, I think you need to stand by, because they're coming for you too. So anyway, that's the old man down the street. I'll see you in a bit. Stay tuned.